Do the video though. If you do, go ahead.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
Okay, can you hear me okay, each of you?
Yes.
Good. So far,
Yes.
I don't see any of our actual authors joining us. Oh, Anne?
Well, the co-host Christina is is an author of a.
She's the
poster.
first author. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
Okay.
Sorry, you just unmuted faster than I did.
Wake up!
Maybe if each of you could introduce yourself to me, so I can connect you to the correct paper, because I've just been only given the list of the first author, and I do certainly have all the authors listed somewhere. Maybe I better.
Yeah, we're co-authors with Christina on her poster.
Oh, okay, great.
Neat.
Very good. I joined your Marine group just briefly on Saturday.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we it was a good meeting. We covered a lot of ground. Yeah. We didn't have time to go back and do it in the second session. We just kept going.
That's great. I haven't gotten a rhythm with this yet.
Yeah, it might take a while. I was just trying to figure this whole thing out too. But I've got the Google page that has everybody's poster on it, and that's nice because you can jump around and look at each poster.
Where did you access that Google page?
Okay, yeah, I
send the link to the group chat. Following this link, you can access all the posters.
yeah, I think let's see how I'd have to.
She was just
okay.
There's an assistant on. Are you unmuted? Unmutedly. It's in the link is in the chat box, and Anna put it in there.
Okay.
Link
good.
to the poster. So if you just hit your chat box on the Zoom, move it up a little.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and then there's for each room, and then what I found is that there's a link showing in column D, but you sort of have to click on it twice. Just touching each poster doesn't do it. That it sort of opens up another internal link. And
so double clicking.
Well, you kind of go in and then at least on my computer it gives you another link that you
yeah. So now we've linked and got to have Christina's on our screen, but we're not sharing it yet. So you would just double link, I guess, on the poster and then hit your share. Are you running the whole thing, or who's running the showing the?
I should have. I am personally the moderator, and just to introduce, and so I'm. Ethan is our tech, and we have Ariel is our monitor, our chat monitor.
Okay, so maybe one of them, or maybe you could find out is one of them. Is it on the? Are you mute? Controlling, linking to the different posters as the person speaks. Who's going to do that of those three?
Our chat monitor, I think, is going to be the one.
Great.
Or the tech, actually. I may be incorrect. I think I better.
And I see that this is being recorded too, so I'll stop talking.
We can mute it.
Okay. I do know we will have two of our participants joining at some point in time. Helen Wiggins cannot join us, and Olivia may join in her place briefly.
I'm here, Catherine.
Let me
I put it
hi
in the
there.
chat here. Yeah, hello. I'm here for Helen's poster.
Oh, hi, there you are. You're under another guise, is that correct? Okay, I'm looking for some correspondence with my tech and my monitor. Are you there?
Yes. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so I think we should go ahead and get underway. And for some reason, there we go. Okay. Ariel?
Yes.
Would you like to go over the script with everyone? You're not prepared to do that. That's not a big deal.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, then let's see. Let's just go ahead and get started. Is everybody familiar with the code of conduct and the opening script? I'm going to have to just access it here. All right. So good morning to all. The circumpolar Arctic is the contemporary home to many different indigenous peoples. As researchers and others who are working in or reside in the Arctic, we recognize these lands and waters as the mostly unceded traditional homeland of the indigenous peoples. It is the responsibility of each of us to learn, know, and gain better understanding of the indigenous people and cultures with which we engage. With that in mind, let's engage in open-minded, community building collaboration as described by the ASSW Code of Conduct shared in the chat window. And there's a link to the Code of Conduct. And
I have just sent the link to the chat, if that's okay.
okay, let's see. All right, shall we begin? Christina, are you ready there then?
Yeah, sure.
All right, wonderful.
One thing is the screen, we've got the whole, it looks a little too big, at least what I'm seeing on
There
There,
you go.
yeah, there we go.
Oh, that's good.
Maybe we'll have to zoom in on it, but that's too small.
That's good.
Okay, Christina Gothel, sediment oxygen consumption in the Pacific Arctic, impacts of increased temperature and food supply on the... Oh.
It's a long title, sorry.
That's okay. I'm sorry, can you finish those words off for me? I ran off the page.
It's looking at increased temperature and food supply on the benthic community and individual dominant organisms.
Oh yes, great.
So thank you. So my name is Christina Gaethel. I'm a PhD student at the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science, Chesapeake Biological Lab. Two of my co-authors, Jackie Grubmeyer and Lee Cooper, are actually on the call as well. And then just acknowledge my last co-author, Chris Rao, who's also at the University of Maryland with us. So this work is part of my dissertation, and the main kind of driving question is, given the ongoing physical and biological changes in the Pacific Arctic, which is where our work is focused, so up in Alaska, how will increasing bottom water temperatures, which are already being observed there. If you look on the poster in the introduction section in that ocean data view plot with all the colors, that bullseye of red and yellow are really warm temperatures in 2018 and 2019 on the bottom. And then food availability and how these changes will affect the total sediment community oxygen consumption, and then the respiration rates of these dominant organisms with a particular focus on bivalves. So this project is part of a cruise that went out on the Healy in 2019, the US Icebreaker in 2019, as part of the Distributed Biological Observatory, the map, which is in the lower right part of the introduction and motivation section. And so the DBO looks at these latitudinal gradients in physical biological changes. And my work has focused in on DBO 1, 3, and 4, which are highlighted in those black boxes. So the northern Bering Sea, the southeastern Chukchi Sea, and the northern Chukchi Sea. And we used a core to go out and collect 8 cores at each of these sites. And the experimental design is highlighted in figure 2. So 4 of the cores went into a more ambient temperature between 0 and 2 degrees Celsius, and 4 of these cores went into elevated temperatures between 4 and 5 degrees Celsius. And then 2 within each temperature treatment, there was an addition of shellfish diet 1800, so phytoplankton, dead phytoplankton into the system. And then at each of these stations, we also collected 12 individuals of the dominant species, which are highlighted in table 1. So in the northern Bering Sea, it was 2 different species of clams. Sorry, that's still in the method section. Yep. In table 1, right under the conceptual diagram of the experimental design. In the southeastern Chukchi Sea, that DBO 3.8 and 3.6 are both the same clam species, Macoma calcarea. And then in the northern Chukchi, one site had a dominant organism of Amphiliska amphipods, and then in the other site back to the clam species. 3 individuals were held in each of the treatments, just like the core, so the 2 temperature treatments and then the 2 feeding treatments. If you scroll back up to the top and on the right-hand side of the poster are some of these initial results. So the top 4 bar graphs, the y-axis for all of them are millimoles of oxygen per meter squared per day, and on the bottom are the station identifications. So on the far left, it's the northern Bering Sea, then the southeastern Chukchi, and then the northern Chukchi Sea. You'll see at DBO 4.4, there's only 1 bar. We weren't able to get 8 cores there, so we only ran 2 cores that were at ambient temperature and unfed. So overall, feeding really didn't have a significant difference, and between treatments across all of the sites and in all of the regions. For temperature, which is the figure 5B plot, there wasn't a significant difference with warmer temperatures. However, in general, cores held at warmer temperatures did have a higher sediment oxygen consumption. And right now, cores are being corrected for biomass of the organisms within the core. So that the 3 circled bars, you can see that the cooler temperature had an higher SCOC, but I know at DBO 3.8, for instance, one of the cores had no clams at all. So there does need to be correction for what organisms are actually living in these cores when we take these measurements, which kind of goes down into the next question. So what is the impact and contribution of individual organisms? And so these are those individual dominant species that were run. And again, oxygen consumption per meter squared per day is on the y-axis, and the stations are on the x-axis. Again, food saw no significant difference. However, individual oxygen consumption was higher in the higher temperature across all stations. So the second kind of question when it comes to individual organisms is what exactly is that contribution? There's an example here in that green box of the contribution example. So slip 4, which is in the DBO1 region of the Northern Bering Sea. This is one example from the warm core that was unfed. And so one of the individual organisms, the nut clam, E. tenuis, the core had a oxygen consumption of 13.74 millimoles of oxygen per meter squared per day. And one individual, E. tenuis, for that same unit was 3.22, which could make up as much as almost 25% of the total core. So one individual clam can have a really high impact on the oxygen consumption here. We are working to kind of normalize some of those values. Again, if a core didn't have clams and I'm trying to compare a clam, we have had instances of clams representing 200% of the core's total, which is probably not possible. But overall, clams do represent a really high contribution in these regions. And these clams are really important because they are food base for things like spectacled eiders and walrus that feed in the area. And so just to kind of wrap up, these physical and biological changes are ongoing in the Pacific Arctic. Temperatures are increasing. We are seeing changes in macrofaunal biomass and composition. So for instance, in the DBO1 region at that slip 4 northern station, in 2018, I would have expected Macoma calcarea to be dominant, but when we got there in 2019, we ended up using that little E. tenuis clam as they were dominant, and rates between different species can differ. So these changes are likely going to affect carbon cycling and functioning within the ecosystem. And if we can understand kind of these system scale changes, especially in this rapidly changing Arctic, it adds a great database to try and predict what might happen in the future. Thank you.
Very good, very good.
Thank you.
Okay, Rachel?
Yeah, hi.
Hi there. So Rachel Sussman, tracking nutrient potential of glacial and permafrost runoff in a South Central Alaskan. Here we come. That's great. Somebody in the background is doing amazing things. Fluvial and coastal marine system, fluvial and coastal marine system.
Yeah, so my name is Rachel Sussman. I'm a first-year master's student at North Carolina State University. So my research is conducted in a subarctic system in South Central Alaska, kind of with the thought that our findings there could be an analog for future change that we might see in the Arctic. So I'm specifically looking at the flux of nutrients downstream of the Matanuska Glacier, which is a little bit north of Anchorage. So we follow a 350-kilometer transect along the Matanuska River, which flows out of the Matanuska Glacier, and it runs through thawing permafrost and then ultimately enters the Cook Inlet in the Gulf of Alaska. So I'm trying to characterize the fate of those nutrients as they move along this transect and enter those coastal waters. Try to see how the nutrients are changing, their speciation, how they're getting used along the way, and then ultimately trying to see what ends up actually entering those coastal ecosystems. The Cook Inlet is home to one of Alaska's most lucrative fishing industries. So it's very economically important for a lot of Alaskans. and is kind of a hub for economic activity in Alaska. And that ecosystem is supported by nutrients from glaciers and permafrost in the area. So yeah, it's important for us to characterize how the ice melt and increased glacial melt are going to impact that ecosystem in the future. Try and help those Alaskans prepare for those changes. This is very preliminary data, kind of just the result of one field season, so not too much analysis yet, but I'm definitely open to any comments that anybody has or any suggestions for future research. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay. I see that I'm up next. I'm thinking we should just go ahead and move through the, oh, okay, I'm gonna be up next. All right. Let me take some of these things down out of my way. Okay, everybody hear me okay? I'm KK Davis, and I am what would be called a citizen scientist or citizen observer. And I'm a recent graduate of UAF, an interdisciplinary degree in Arctic environmental policy. Over the past 3 years, I've been recording a rather new phenomenon, something that surfaced in about November of 2017, and I began to take photos and record what I was seeing. So these photos at the top of my poster are examples of what subarctic Alaska, what our winter days used to look like, crystal clear and crisp, as I have mentioned in my poster. The observations below are what we have begun to experience on a daily basis, with with exception, of course. Last year in the winter of 2018 and 2019, we had 13 clear days out of our basic 6 months that from the autumnal equinox to the vernal equinox. And so I have tried to reach out to our researcher community here and to see what their take is on this, and trying to gain some response to that. And in all of my reading, my conjecture points to possible ocean microbial cloud seeding coming from the Bering Sea as a contributor to possible aerosols. But I postulate that there is transboundary pollution present, which really is only visible to you, hopefully, in the photos. I have no true testing. And really that's all. Are you able to see the, yeah, maybe scroll up just to see the very final portion of the photos? Oh, great, thank you. Anyhow, as our sun barely clears this gray mass, our very little bit of sun that we get to begin with, it makes one think, and the color is a bit discerning as well. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now Helen is not, I'm sorry, let me be sure of where we are here. Olivia, you are going to
Present for Helen.
Oh,
I'm a co-author.
great, that's
Yep.
great.
Wonderful.
So yeah, an interactive crowdsourcing poster on Arctic observing entities and priorities.
Yeah, so Helen and I thought it would be really fun and engaging to do an interactive poster, which unfortunately does not translate when we're all not in the same room. So we put together, and I'm going to put the link in the chat, just kind of a few short questions to get a better idea of who it is that actually participates at the Arctic Observing Summit. I know we are kind of focusing now on how observations can also serve societal benefit areas. And technically we could get some of this information from looking at the registration list, but it's interesting to see how people self-identified in these various groupings of people. I'm guessing most of us are in the research community, but it would be interesting to get a feel for just how diverse of an audience we get here at the Arctic Observing Summit. Through the working groups, I know we'll be trying to tackle some of these issues, but we're hoping to also get some feedback on how we can build better collaborations among different people, different disciplines, different research interests, and different stakeholders. And then I just did a quick word cloud of all of the submissions for the Arctic Observing Summit 2020, all the short statements and white papers. And if you could zoom in a little bit on the word cloud, whoever is driving this share screen, that'd be helpful. There are a few key themes that are not surprising that popped out. If you could scroll down to see the word cloud there. Yep, perfect. But again, the short statements tend to get, yes, it's all anonymous, Bill. No personally identifying information is collected here. And this is kind of an opportunity to be pretty blunt with what your responses are and thinking about what do we need to think about that's important as we're trying to develop this integrated Arctic observing system and one that's sustained. There's a lot of things I know that different people are interested in, and not everything is something we can actually make progress on. But at the end of the day, I don't expect we will get too many responses, but we will be posting that, if you could scroll down a little bit more, on the ARCIS website, just so if you're curious about what sort of responses we got, and we're happy to share with anyone who's interested in what sort of crowdsourced input we get. And that's it. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Olivia. I will certainly fill out the survey. Gladly.
Everyone should feel free to fill out the survey while I'm talking in a few minutes. That's kind of a joke. Yeah, everybody should fill out the survey. It's short.
Okay, Pamela? Pamela Peters. Pamela, are you hiding under a different name by chance? Okay. We may not have Pamela with us. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll see if she isn't able to join us by the end, and we will just go ahead and move on to William. Hello, William. William Manley.
Morning. Good afternoon.
Morning.
Good evening.
Optimizing Arctic observing through a new polar observing assets working group. Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks a lot. So there's momentum building from multiple directions to identify strengths and gaps across numerous observing systems and to link observations and essential variables with societal benefit areas and then generally clarify directions for Arctic observing. This is from multiple organizations and efforts. And there has been progress in recent years with inventories and portals, but coming from or looking towards what's happened with progress in the data community, there are lessons learned that we can apply to observing assets beyond the data set level. And so by this, we mean observing sites, observing stations, research projects, ship or buoy tracks, observing networks or systems, and more. So these are things, semantic things, that are beyond the level of data sets and data set level metadata. So there could be greater adoption across multiple efforts to adopt interoperable metadata standards and control vocabularies and crosswalks and federated search and linkages to scientific data sets such that high order discovery level information about essentially about who's doing what, where, when for Arctic observing could be more findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, this so-called FAIR principles. And that would provide a more comprehensive perspective that would be effective for scientific planners, logistics coordinators, and research scientists. So in addition, recommendations that we expect to come out of this working group would make it far easier for individual networks to create their own catalogs of activities and efforts, populate those catalogs, expand or deploy them with less time and effort. So for these reasons, a new working group is forming, the Polar Observing Assets Working Group. This is just starting up with the first meeting in about a month. It will be under the SAN Committee on Observations and Networks, SAN-CON. And so it'll work somewhat like the Federated Search and Semantic Committees, working groups, which are under SAN, but those two are under SAN Arctic Data Committee, whereas this will be under the SAN Committee on Observations and Networks. So there is a related white paper, but more important really, I think, is for this meeting is this poster, and there's a link at the bottom. If you're interested, please sign up.
Very good. This is really speaking directly to something that just comes forward in any research that I've ever been doing here. So I think very important work. We're going to, Annette, have you joined us? Let me see here.
Yes, I'm online.
Okay, hi. Annette Barsh.
No, that's not mine.
No, so
yeah,
towards circumpolar mapping of infrastructure. There we are.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Now this is part of the Horizon 2020 NUNATI project, which is which aims to assess the impacts of permafrost thaw on land, coast, and subsea permafrost, and specifically on local communities in the Arctic. So, and in order to determine these impacts, we need information on infrastructure in the Arctic, on settlements, and we need something what is consistent. Well, of course, there are things like OpenStreetMap, but that's really, well, it's inconsistent and not really complete for the Arctic. So what we try to do is to use satellite data, specifically Sentinel-1, which is a SAR mission, and Sentinel-2, multispectral mission, which provides 10-meter spatial resolution, and to cover in all the Arctic coast regions with a buffer of 100 kilometer inland, and overlapping all the areas where we find permafrost. And we tested different types of algorithms, machine learning, deep learning, to get this information. And well, none of the algorithms are working really perfectly because of the type of information that we are using. So this 10-meter spatial resolution, it's already quite good, but it has some limitations. And then the spectral signatures, that's also a bit of a challenge, but we can get some information. And we can use that, for example, to look into what is newly built or what is already older. So that's the example on the right from the Amal Peninsula showing all what is yellow has been built after 1999, and the red, that's some older infrastructure and settlements. That's in that case, that's a combination of a different data set which comes out from a project called Globe Permafrost, where the RV calculated trends, long-term trends from Landsat. So by merging that, we can get information about the age of the settlements, in addition to all the other information that we can derive. And well, we probably by the end of this year, we aim at that. At the moment, that's that we have some first version, that some first version is published. Yeah, I need to switch between different Zoom rooms today because I have parallel posters which I'm presenting. So I might not be online for questions all the time, but I just saw Georg Pointner being online. He is the one actually doing the processing. So he could maybe also answer questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. Okay, Darius Ignatiuk.
Yes, hello. Hello, my name is Darek Ignatiuk. I'm working for Svalbard Integrated Arctic Earth Observing System, SIOS. SIOS is a consortium of institutions with research infrastructure in and around Svalbard. And we are working towards integration of new and existing infrastructure and data, a network of systematic observations, towards better temporal and spatial coverage of key data, improvement integration of space-based and in-situ observations. So SIOS, thanks to the Norwegian Meteorological Institute, has developed a catalog which provides an overview of the observation facilities which collect SIOS data. The purpose of the catalog is to make better use of the existing research infrastructure by facilitating the search for given parameters and their location. In this way, duplication can be avoided and new measurements can be co-located with existing ones. Of course, the catalog may also be used to gain a simple overview of the collected parameters and how to access to the data. So an observation facility can be one instrument on a collection of the instruments, for example, weather station or the glacier with the mass balance measurements. We are following the standards, the WIGO standards, so standards from the World Meteorological Organization Integrated Global Observing System. So the annotation is standardized as far as possible in order to make entries interoperable internationally. So the search interface allows users to use the facility names, institution names that deliver the data about the facility, You can search by the GCMT keywords, current state of the facility, type of the facility. Also, you can choose from a list of the observatories. So all our partners can contribute from SIOS. We now have almost 80 facilities, and we are improve our catalog. At some moment, it should be connected to our data access point, that everything will be integrated into one system. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very nice. All right, Meredith LaValle. Developing an interagency research plan for the Arctic. Your input valued. Very good. Meredith? I don't see her in the queue.
I know she's in Alaska, so I'm not sure. It's awfully early for her. She might not be.
Yeah,
I completely understand.
This is Jackie Grebmeyer. I think I could just give a minute if you want me to describe this.
Sure.
Sure. Roberto is the National Science Foundation Delgado Program Officer for the Arctic Observing Network. Meredith is assistant on the and Arcus, and Sandy Starkweather is the new chair of the SAON Sustaining Arctic Observing Network. And so what IARPIC is the Interagency Research Arctic Policy Committee in the United States. And so every 5 years, the US government and this consortium develops a Arctic plan. And so we're just finishing up a 5-year plan, and this is the next 5-year plan. So they're looking for input. And IARPIC, we have working groups that are virtual, and IAS actually has a working group of all the 5 working groups participants in the program. So anybody can join these webinars, just to let you know. You just have to put into IARPIC collaborations teams. But so what is the 5-year plan? That's the upper part that you're looking at. As I just described, it's underneath one of our Arctic Research Policy Acts in the United States, building what the agencies can collaborate across. For example, I am a co-chair of the Marine Ecosystem Collaborative Team. We have 14 different performance elements. And so we try to work across agencies to build stronger research in the Arctic. Who can contribute? You can see that in the upper middle part of the column. Why work on a plan? I'm not going to go through all that, describes that. But you can look on the development of the Arctic Research Plan 2022 to 2026. We're in the beginning stages of the planning process, and it's open. And we actually had a breakout group, I think it was 2 days ago, in which people were giving their ideas, both US as well as international, because international parts of it are very important. I work on the Pacific Arctic Group, which is a consortium of 6 countries. Also, IASC is a strong part of this input on the international level. So you can see if you were to go vertically from the top down to the bottom, we'll move into having all this input for from the community, and then develop the plan. And then it goes into the drafting stages. Then it goes through review, internal review, and gets out on the Federal Register in the United States, and then becomes part of the 5-year effort. Then all the volunteers and all these different working groups will try to facilitate and move forward, trying to connect different US agencies, connections to international planning activities such as through IASC to make this a lot stronger and synergistic effort within the United States. I'll just close up by saying what research questions need to be addressed. So you can see, consider the following. You can, like I said, you can Google IARPIC. You can look at the current goals and missions. They focus on research with enhanced cooperation, as I said. But it also can include both basic and applied research. We're building in the indigenous collaborations into these different teams. And as you go vertically on the left side of the poster, you can see ways to connect and contribute. And you can see the links that are there So if you could go back on the poster, how you can look at the developing plan, get information on what we do. You can submit your own thoughts, anybody online here, through this link that's on their form. There's a comment also on the IARPA collaboration. There's a Facebook page. And if you have any more questions, you can get a hold of Meredith LaValle, and her contact information is there. So thank you.
Wow, Jackie, you really know your stuff.
Well, I have been doing it. I was a vice president of IAS, and I've been on a lot of committees, and I'm more of the senior scientist.
Well, we're lucky that you're in the room this morning to.
Perhaps you should present all the posters.
No.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, I think we should just each present other posters, and then that would be an interesting time.
I think my mouse is moving back to mute.
Goodbye.
Okay, so let's see if Pamela has been able to join us at this point. Pamela, are you here? And if Pamela has not been able to join us, I think it would be nice to just take a look at Pamela's poster, Pamela Peters. So now I really do wish Pamela were here so she could do the pronunciation of the first word in her title. I'm not going to, I'm not even going to go out on a limb. So let's see. Listening to Voices of Knowledge. And it looks like, is Pamela from Canada? Are you able to scroll to the bottom, towards the bottom of the poster so we can maybe see, oh, at least in the middle, that's good, great. Is everybody able to read that? Thank you. Okay, very nice. It always helps to have a little bit of elaboration, but I'm imagining she is on our close to the Alaska time zone. Okay, am I missing anybody in the room? Okay, now, Ethan, are you able to somehow message us in the chat on how we can look more closely at each of these posters? I know that the link is provided in the spreadsheet. is there any other way that's available in our room at this point? Or, and if people so desire, you're free to jump to another room, I think.
Let's say I wanted to thank you all for putting together this session, and everyone can also look at all the posters online, of course, and it's amazing how quickly the team came up to speed with the technology for an online conference.
Yeah, thanks for facilitating this, and for all the poster presenters for providing your posters.
Yes.
Very nice having you. I enjoyed each and every one of them. And thanks for putting up those links.